This week's guest is a scientist, explorer, politician, and internationally acclaimed author of numerous books hailing from South Africa. He is the founder of the Ubuntu liberation movement of unity and higher consciousness. He has also become an authority on the ancient, vanished civilisations of southern Africa, the mysterious origins of humankind, resonance, cymatics, and the power of sound. His research includes a diverse field of subjects such as archaeology, mythology, human origins, religion, origins of money, spirituality, breakthrough science, and consciousness. With a warm welcome, I'd like to introduce Michael Tellinger to the Blade and Chalice podcast.
How are you, David?
How are you this morning, Michael?
I'm very well, thank you. I hope you're doing well. And I believe you're in Cape Town, is that right?
Cape Point. So we have,
Wow.
bit of a different resonance down here. And I've gone out with a local authority named Dean Laprini, who's taken me to some of the archaeoastronomy sites. So I've actually seen firsthand some of these sites that are 150,000 years old, where, you know, on the solstice, it comes up through a little slit in the rock. So I've been there. And so your videos make a lot more sense. But I would just, my listeners, I'm not sure, really understand what you've done, especially if they're tuning in from other parts of the world. So I'd just like to maybe start and ask you, what's your own personal journey and relationship to the broad field of subjects that you have come to learn about?
I have been very fortunate to have done many things in my life, not by force, by choice. And I think that I've always been, if I just look at my life since childhood, I've always been a highly inquisitive mind. I never wanted to just accept what was given to me or told me this is how it is. Throughout school, I guess I always caused problems, and at the same time gave the teachers quite a bit of excitement because they had somebody that actually engaged them and questioned and tried to figure out if there's another answer or other ways and so forth. And so there were definitely pivotal moments in my life that I found had some sort of a catalytic effect on pushing me in a certain direction throughout primary school, high school, and especially university as well. And I've chosen to do many different things. I've found that for example, I studied pharmaceutics at Wits Medical School in Johannesburg. But while I was studying pharmaceutics, I was doing many other things. I was a musician, I did theater, I wrote a lot of stuff. I wrote songs, I wrote screenplays. So I was involved in the arts quite actively in those days. But I also played sport. I did windsurfing, I played golf. And at one stage I thought I wanted to become a professional golfer because we played quite well. So I've always pushed myself into doing different things and never felt bullied or pressurized by peer groups, whether it was at school or university. It was like, hey, if guys don't like what I'm doing, that's fine. It's your problem. It's not my problem. I wish more people would feel that way, not feel pressurized by peer groups or the in crowd at school or at varsity. And if the in crowd don't like what you're doing, they look down at you or whatever, or bully you or whatever. That's their problem. Choose your own journey. Decide what it is that tickles your fancy, that floats your boat, that attracts you, that makes you wake up in the morning excited about what it is that you're going to do. And so throughout my life, I've done a lot of different things. And after doing them for a little while, they either worked or they didn't work, and then decide, okay, I've been there, done that. I'm going to move on and try something else. And that's in many ways, that has stood me in very good stead, because it has given me a very broad experience in many different things, whether it's movie editing and sound effects construction, or being a sound designer in Hollywood for a large film company, to working in the pharmaceutics industry, manufacturing drugs, to retail pharmacy, to importing drugs and launching different brands in South Africa. So, a variety of things, being involved in broadcasting, producing TV shows and working on movies and so forth. So it's been a very exciting and interesting journey. And I've always been keen on asking questions that I guess some people find uncomfortable to ask.
I guess I could also be interviewing you on how to learn things quickly then. It sounds like you have a knack for that. But more than that, I am super enthusiastic to focus on your experience with the alternate histories that you've come across due to your work in looking at what you found in South Africa archaeologically, and maybe how that's tied in with human genetics. Because I want to start there and maybe go in a few other directions after that. But I think that context is very important. Can you speak to what you've observed and what you've come across in your research?
Well, the most important thing that I'd like your listeners to keep an open mind about is that we know nothing about our human history. We know nothing, or very little, so little that it amounts to nothing, in fact, about our human origins, the history of the world, history of the planet, science, technology, what we think is advanced science, advanced technology, what we think we know about history, what we think we know about archaeology, geology, science, physics, space, cosmos, all these things is a fraction of what's really going on. And especially when it comes to history. And some people might get confused. What do you mean about science and physics? We know what physics is. We understand how it works. Well, that's what we think. We think we understand how it works. And I can go into a lot more detail, but we probably not going to get there today in this discussion. But this is the big awakening for me, is how little we know about pretty much everything that we face as subjects at school, university, and the things that we grow up with around us. So when I started to look into ancient human history, origins of humankind, which I've been interested in since I was a child, since looking up at the sky, wondering if there are other people living on these other planets and these other stars, that was not crazy or alien to me as a little child. I remember being 5 years old, and natural thoughts came to me like that. Nobody told me to think like that; it just came to me automatically. So you start to realize that what we read in our sterile versions of history books is so far removed from what really happened that when you start uncovering the often disturbing and confusing history of the world right under our feet, it starts to look more and more like the mythology that we read about in all the fantastic mythological stories in ancient times. And so I'm now at the stage where I look at and I read mythology from the various ancient civilizations, or what our mainstream historians and academia puts to us as mythology. I look at that, and that to me is a lot, or seems to be a lot closer to what truly happened on Earth over hundreds of thousands of years and probably millions of years. And that when I say millions of years, that includes advanced beings, advanced humanoids. It includes giants, people that were very large. It includes very advanced beings. It includes beings coming from other parts of the cosmos and appearing here and doing weird and wonderful things. And it includes looking at some of the ancient texts that refer to this ancient time in human history. And I specifically refer here to the Sumerian text, the Sumerian clay tablets, that give us a vast amount of information about our human history that is very different from the sterile versions of our modern history books. And therein begins the huge paradigm shift and an opening of the mind to open ourselves up to very different knowledge, very different information that most people have suppressed or simply do not want to accept because they've been told that it can't be so, or that's not true. And we are often told that, this is just somebody's crazy ideas and so forth. So what I found in South Africa very quickly, and this happened very, very quickly after releasing Slave Species of God in 2005, I then discovered the ancient ruins of South Africa, which I wrote about. I referenced them in Slave Species, and that blew my mind. It was almost as if I was just gifted that natural next step when I met John Heine in early 2007 in Pretoria, and I realized that we are sitting on the largest. Well, at that stage, I didn't know it. I just knew that we are sitting on some of the most mysterious ancient ruins in the world that were not studied, not investigated, not archaeologically explored. We knew nothing about them. All we had was scanned little bits of information, a very badly done archaeological dig here and very badly done research here. From 1931, we probably have some of the most detailed research of the South African ancient ruins from the 30s. I mean, that's how bad it is. And there were some scanned, very badly done archaeological research studies and digs in the 80s and the 90s, and then it pretty much fizzles away, and I appeared on the scene in 2007. So what I discovered there is that there's a hidden history of the world right under our feet in South Africa, a hidden history of the world. And very soon after I discovered this vast, hidden, suppressed, ancient civilization, by 2008, towards the end of 2008, I realized that we're dealing with the largest concentration of ancient ruins found anywhere on Earth. We're dealing with a vanished civilization that we know nothing about. We're dealing with advanced technology that these guys possessed that used sound as a source of, as a tool and a source of energy. And they left behind more than 10 million stone structures that we can talk about in a lot more detail, that were not built as dwellings for people or cows, by the way. They were built as an energy generating machine. So we're talking about a vast machine that was built by some vanished civilization, and we can talk about who they possibly are. And a lot of clues and evidence points towards a certain group of individuals and beings, but they left behind what is now known and recognized by thousands, possibly millions of people around the world as the largest cluster of ancient ruins on Earth, and possibly, at this stage, not possibly, we know that it's a machine. Right now, it is the largest machine ever built on Earth. It covers more than 450,000 square kilometers.
You know, that is so fascinating that you found that. Since I was a kid, I used to love reading Edgar Cayce or other people who would speak about accessing something like the Akashic Records, and they'd tell these stories of a bygone era where technology was amazing and there's telekinesis and they used electromagnetism and electricity in ways we can't fathom. And then you have actually found the remnants of this. You know, I've heard stories of pyramids under the water in China and all across the world. And it's one thing too I want to point out is that the scientific community acts very unscientific when it comes to presenting them with stuff, because it's complete cognitive dissonance, and they choose to double down on the limited bandwidth of reality every single time.
Yeah.
And there's books on this where people have done very credible studies in some of the areas that you're speaking to that have been laughed at by the traditional academics. You know, it's almost like it's like the church all over again, really, with science. And it really has to be brave researchers like yourself who say, I'm not going to listen to that crap. I'm going to listen to this place in here in my heart, and I'm going to go study what I love. But that is fascinating. I mean, I think we could obviously get very detailed about the specifics of this, but I want to focus on one angle of this. You mentioned sound, and I've actually seen a video of you in the ruins of Zimbabwe triggering various sort of resonators, and they're making large noises. Can you speak about what you think that is, or what you've learned about these resonators and the use of sound energy?
Well, that's the key thing here. Before we even go there, it's important, before we even explain how sound and resonance and frequency is the fundamental component of the Stone Circle ruins of South Africa, or Southern Africa, I should say, because they cross borders. They go into Zimbabwe. They cover most of Zimbabwe, some parts of Botswana, Mozambique. And they go across the Zambezi River into Zambia, but most concentrated in South Africa and Zimbabwe. So sound is the primordial source code for creation. When I say sound, I'm talking about resonance, vibration, frequency that we experience as sound in this dimension, this density, in this atmosphere. Ultimately, it's resonance and frequency that creates the sound that we then experience. So even when you read the Bible, it says God said, let there be light. So it was the sound of the Creator that made light. So sound comes before light. And, you know, I do in detailed scientific quantum mechanics lectures and teachings on this, how this works, how we materialize fundamentally from nothing to have something by combining sound and light. And so these are fundamental aspects of the laws of nature that we do not get taught at school in physics. And you have to leave university and start to re-educating yourself to understand where quantum mechanics has missed some opportunities and missed some true information, while some of the founders of quantum mechanics, like Max Planck, was very clear about stating that everything comes from consciousness. You cannot get behind consciousness. Here's the guy that in essence invented biolocation by discovering the quantum leap, the fact that electrons disappear in one level of energy and then magically reappear in a different location. So he proved quantum mechanically or in quantum subatomic structures that their biolocation is possible, or time travel is not time travel. What's the word I'm looking for now? We come back to. So he proved that this is possible, and then he's celebrated for this. He wins a Nobel Prize. But they don't actually go into who Max Planck was and that he's a deeply spiritual guy, that he believed that all of this stuff comes from consciousness. It does not come from an infinite number of particles bumping into each other and then miraculously creating everything in creation, including you and I, and our ability to have a spiritual discussion. So this is really important to understand what sound really is, that sound is a fundamental source code for creation. And when you start looking at all ancient civilizations, and I'm talking about all ancient cultures, and this is what I found when I was researching Slave Species of God, the origins of humankind, no matter which civilization you research, when you get to the murky origins where they talk about the creation of the universe and all things in it, it always comes down to sound, the sound and resonance of the creator, whether it was Vishnu, whether it was God, whether it was some other source code that the original people of Australia talk about. It's all about sound, always sound as a source code of all creation. So when I discovered that the stone circles of South Africa are, in essence, amplifiers for sound frequencies that naturally keep coming out of the earth, because the earth rings like a bell. The earth is a resonator. It never stops ringing. So once I realized that these stone circles were just basic amplifiers for this earth frequency, I realized very quickly that whoever built them and created them had a very high knowledge of sound, resonance, and frequency, and how to use that as a tool and technology. Because now we have 10 million or more of these resonator sound frequency generating energy devices that cover most of Southern Africa, or large parts of Southern Africa, even around Johannesburg and Pretoria and down through the Free State, and all of Mpumalanga through Limpopo, across Limpopo into Zimbabwe. They're just millions of these stone circle ruins. They're hidden, they're covered by grass and trees and bushveld that's grown over them. And now we're dealing with the question, who are these people? Who built this? How much did they, why did they have this advanced knowledge of sound, resonance, and frequency? And what did they use this energy for? That's really ultimately now the next big question.
Wow. Thank you so much for giving some background on that. As a musician, one of the things I found out was that, in the Hindu temples, the tuning of their bells and gongs is often within 1 hertz of a higher octave of the Earth's rotation around the sun. So you take the Earth's rotation around the sun and how long that takes, 365 days, and you keep multiplying to higher octaves, and it comes into the tuning of these bells. And that all throughout history, in different places, when they've studied the frequencies, obviously you know a lot about cymatics, but when they show these frequencies and they play them into a plate of sand, they'll often form harmonious notes for these particular instruments, so that we knew something in the past that was very powerful. And the beauty of sound, too, is at its fundamental level, you have the frequency, which is, how high or low the pitch is, and then the amplitude, which is the power, like you're saying. And so I mean, we could go into sound for an entire interview, but I actually kind of like this this little teaser we've been doing and moving into different areas. One other thing I want to ask you about is that you speak quite a bit about gold. And one thing I've come across in my studies as well is that the Egyptians speak about this thing called monoatomic gold, which is slightly different than the gold that we use. And it was actually used in a lot of their technology. A lot of the pyramidion caps, the caps of the pyramids, were said to be this monoatomic gold. As we know, gold is the greatest conductor on Earth. Can you speak about what you've learned about the ancient technologies in gold, and if that relates to sound as well?
Well, look, everything relates to sound. Before I come to the gold, which is a very important subject, because all this activity, all the stone circles in South Africa are connected to what the Sumerian texts refer to as the Anuna or the Anunnaki. So we'll talk a lot more detail about that. And the Anunnaki are known from the Sumerian text in great detail over and over again, telling us about their quest for gold, how much gold they were mining and digging up around the world. And then they found the motherlode of the deposits in Southern Africa, which they refer to as the Abzu. And I believe I've identified the Abzu as being Zimbabwe and South Africa. And then they have slightly different references to it. When they call it the Abzu, they probably meant Zimbabwe. When they call it the deep Abzu, they talk about Southern Africa below the Limpopo River. So I'll come back to that. I just want to come back a little bit more just to finish on the sound and resonance principle. So what I find fascinating is more and more people that I meet, including you, for example, people that get it, they get the technology, often have some sort of a musical background. And that just makes absolute sense. And this is possibly why I was drawn to this. And I could immediately understand it, because any musician understands harmonics and resonance and octaves and chords, whether it's a harmonic.
And what music does to our brain, right? Just our consciousness.
Exactly.
When we're in the pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can think about music, you can think about it. You haven't created it, but you can think about it. That, I hope people understand what I mean here. You can think about hearing a tone. And for example, me, as if you're a musician, and millions of other musicians around the world, yourself probably too, if you're a musician and you're a composing musician, you can hear the arrangement in your head. You can hear exactly what every instrument's going to do at which point of the arrangement. So you have created this thing in your mind. So those frequencies already exist in your mind. Now you just have to project it somewhere to manifest it. And this is actually called magic. When you take sound and you manifest sound, because the frequencies in your mind, that your thought frequencies, that your brain, or the thoughts that operate or multiply in your brain as a computer, are emitted from your brain through this electromagnetic field around your body as frequencies. So those frequencies can manifest either as sound frequencies, electromagnetic fields, or magnetic fields. Any one of those. They are all interchangeable. As long as it arises from a resonance, it can be turned into a magnetic field, an electromagnetic field, can be turned into light. We might not be able to see it, but it will be turned into light, because sound automatically has a frequency of light. We just can't see it. We only see
the laser light show prove that.
Yeah, exactly. So
when the bass frequency is played, there's a corresponding light that went with that.
So what I really would like to recommend for people watching this, if they don't know the study of sound, please watch some of my lectures on YouTube. They're free, or join my video channel. And there's some various lectures on there. Plus, I'll be doing many more lectures on this. This is really important. Once people grasp the critical fundamental importance of sound, resonance, and frequency as a primordial source of everything, including light, it's very easy to pretty much explain everything. In that moment, the moment one grasps that, you literally become an expert in quantum mechanics. As crazy as it may sound,
yes.
The moment you grasp this and understand the toroidal nature of how sound manifests in toroidal fields, these perfectly balanced toroidal fields that then create magnetic fields, perfectly balanced magnetic fields, and those magnetic fields, when they move, create electromagnetic energy, and that gives rise to light. So you start seeing the progression of creation from the source code of resonance, and you start to see how your sound, the frequencies of your thoughts can and should be able to manifest physical objects the way that you can show sound manifesting into physical form in the example of cymatics. You know, when you, as you mentioned, when you take a metal plate and you put a sound frequency through it, every sound frequency shows up as a different shape. So that is called prime resonance frequency. Everything in creation, from the smallest subatomic particle to molecules, to atoms, to electrons, to molecules in our bodies, to everything, your organs in your body as a whole, as a collective, to rocks, to everything has its own prime resonance frequency. And if you know what that prime resonance frequency is, then you can manipulate that object. You can either make it disintegrate or you can make it stronger by exposing it to dissonant harmonic frequencies or dissonance. You're exposing it to destructive frequencies, and it will break. You'll break it up, and that's in essence how Royal Raymond Drive in 1931, was
zap cancer.
Yeah, exactly. So many people know about him. Those of you that are watching this, you don't know about Royal Raymond Drive. This is a big aha moment for you when you realize how important this is, how sound, resonance, and frequency can do everything and anything, and how we can cure all disease with sound, resonance, and frequency. We can grow organs with it. We can do everything and anything with it. We can fix DNA with it. It becomes the alpha omega of all our knowledge. It becomes the fundamental laws of the laws of nature that we find ourselves in. It is truly spectacular. So these guys, whether it's the Anunnaki that we read about in the Sumerian texts, or some other beings that had this knowledge, that built these millions and millions of stone circles, used the sound of earth to create natural amplifiers that created an unimaginable amount of energy to use on planet Earth. They didn't have to have power stations or generators or fossil fuel or anything like that. They used the natural resonance of Mother Earth to generate unimaginable amounts of energy. What they use that for, that's the next big question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, let me also add to that. We know this. The reason I say is because we've measured it. We've measured the sound frequencies. We've measured the electromagnetic fields in the stone circles. We've also had effects of healing that happened in the stone circles over a 13-year period. It's not just once somebody got healed or something. This is an ongoing, repetitive saga. People keep telling us how they get healed of this and cured of that, and from benign things to full-blown cancer. So this is serious stuff we're talking about. So I've sort of skipped Royal Raymond Drive, but let's come back to him quickly. So in 1931, Royal Raymond Drive was quoted to be the man by the American Medical Association, by the way. So it wasn't just some group of hicks. It was like the big body in America that called him the man who found the cure for all disease, because he showed how he could cure cancer at will in a cancer ward. I think there were like 30 or more patients that he cured pretty much within a day or two. He cured all of them of cancer, and then one person that he didn't cure and came back the next day, and then he cured him. And so all he did, he was able to see the effect of the sound frequencies that he was using through his resonator. He could look through his universal microscope that he created as well, which is really powerful. He could actually see the living tissue, the living cells, the cancer cells in among the human cells. And he could see how the cancer cells would respond to different frequencies and actually be ripped apart, torn apart by dissonant energy, dissonant frequencies. So once you see that, you understand how powerful harmonious and harmonic coherent resonance is, coherent resonance. And anyone that studies music, you know how powerful music is in movies. Without the music, movies wouldn't be the experience that we have. It's the music that makes the movies the emotional experience, not the visual stuff. And why we listen to soundtracks. You don't have people put on a movie without the sound and reminisce about how great the movie is, but you put on the soundtrack of a movie and you can still see the visuals in your mind by listening to the soundtrack of the movie.
It's incredible. I want to bring up another example related to this. So you talked about the constructive work of Royal Rife, but in Washington, in the U.S., there was a steel bridge, a very, very strong, sturdy steel bridge. But wind started gusting one day, and it gusted at the prime resonant frequency of that steel bridge, and all of a sudden the bridge almost became like liquid. And basically the whole thing resonated with the wind because the wind hit that fundamental frequency of the bridge, and it tore it down essentially.
Yeah.
So that is the power, like the raw force of this energy, if it's amplified to a high enough degree.
Yeah.
My partner and I actually, we work with sound. We do live transmissions where we look at what's going on astrologically. We figure out the frequency of it. We attach a neural entrainment schedule, and we basically channel using ancient instruments and some modern stuff as well. So we are, the people that listen to this and that follow the work we do are very much interested in sound. They might not get all the nuances. So this stuff is excellent. I'm so glad you jumped in here and gave such a brilliant synopsis. Like, I can't add anything to that. Like, you nailed it, Michael.
Well, we can add. I can add a little bit more just to make it even more exciting. You know, I have friends all over the world, from being privileged to having traveled, more than 25 countries over the last 12 years and done lectures on this and the ancient ruins and the knowledge. As the knowledge kept coming for me, the more I discovered, the more I had to share. And it's all somehow related to sound, resonance, frequency, the knowledge, Caesar technology. We can talk about that, hypersound, and the importance of this, and then discovering the lies of mainstream education and lies of mainstream physics. They constantly shove the lies that light is the fastest thing, nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. That is probably one of the biggest disservices ever done to humanity by our scientific fraternity, because once people think, oh, nothing can travel in the speed of light, then they stuck. That you're in a box, you're in a jail for as long as you allow yourself to be in there. So I'll explain a little bit later how that is not true, and how sound travels infinitely fast and is much faster than light. And that always comes as a surprise to people that are new to this. And there's a huge, it's a liberating moment for people when they discover this. It allows them to start thinking openly about pretty much anything they think about. Remember, your thoughts are powerful tools, so use them wisely. Where was I going with this? I forgot my jump around so much.
You're going to add on to sound.
Yes.
You're going to add
yes,
a little bit.
I was gonna just tell you how sound is just completely and utterly integrated into everything around us. Whether it's the geometry of the rocks and the stones and the quartz crystals that make up majority of the stone on Earth, and the granites and the quartz in pretty much all the rock that we find under our feet in the mountains. So the sound and the resonance that is responsible for the structure, the molecular structure, how sound and resonance is responsible for the bonds, the hydrogen bonds and the electromagnetic bonds in molecules. If it wasn't for sound and resonance, there would be no molecules that could form. So it's all to do with harmonic coherence. And anyone that understands music understands it. So you hear in music, when you play this beautiful harmonious chords, how good it makes you feel. And then you suddenly add that dissonant chord that clashes, that you go, oh, that's jarring, that's horrible, no. And it's this kind of people that, composers that understand sound, that use their comprehension of sound, the dissonance and the resonance, how to either lift your spirit in the piece of music, how to make you fly, or how to make you cringe and want to hide or feel nervous. So this is how powerful sound is. We use it in our music. And the one great example of how the geometry of sound is encoded in everything around us, in the platonic solids, the platonic shapes, the sacred geometric patterns, whether it's from the cube or hexagons or triangles. And when you start looking at the angles within these structures, and you convert the angles, whether it's 90 degrees or 120 degrees or 360 degrees, 180 degrees, in all these sacred geometric patterns or platonic shapes, when you start playing around with the angles of these shapes, and you convert those to sound frequencies on a piano or a keyboard, you'll be shocked to see how these frequencies create a perfect harmonious chord that makes up what seems to be the fundamental key in which the universe has been constructed, which is F sharp major. It's just spectacular. So I would like to, direct your viewers to my friend Eric Rankin, who listened to.
Yeah, and I could post a link below too.
Yes, so. Eric Rankin, who lives in Laguna Beach. He runs a radio show. You might reach out to him. I'll put you in touch with him if you want to, because he's a musician. Excellent. That's why he got it, And so whenever I go to the USA and I'm on tour there in LA, I go to Laguna Beach and I do a show with Eric, and we've had many discussions over the decade that I've been going to the USA. And Eric, from one discussion that we had, I think it was the first time that he interviewed me, I said something and he went, hold on. And he went and discovered this. So this is his discovery. And he always tells me, it was what you told me that made me discover this. So, Eric gave us an absolute gift. Watch his documentary called Sonic Geometry. Sonic Geometry. It's on YouTube. It will just blow your mind. It is so beautiful. And you start to realize how the universe and everything in creation is completely, utterly interconnected through sound resonance and frequency, through harmonic resonance, harmonious construction.
It was to the point, I studied a lot of ancient traditions, and in the Commission mystery schools, going back 5,000, 6,000 years, they had 4 subjects of study: mathematics, geometry, astronomy, and music. So, the fact that the ancients placed that much emphasis on sound and geometry should tell us a lot about the true nature of how reality works.
Exactly. And this also shows us how fatally flawed our education system is. And, anyone that really steps away and looks at our education system very quickly realizes it's got nothing to do with education, but everything to do with indoctrination and brainwashing and manipulation and control, taking control of our young minds at an early stage. And for 12 years, brainwashing us until we leave school with a piece of paper that, a certificate that says, now I'm entitled to do what? To go and get a job. And you start to realize, oh my God, I've just been trained to be a slave to the system. So, it's once you start realizing how ancient civilizations before the financial systems have been manipulated into what they are today, the global banking scam, the banking families, the Rothschild global empire through their central banks, how they control everything, all the countries, how they control all the research labs, all the governments, how they control the big pharma, the media, everything, how they control everything, because they...
Including us, because of our birth certificate as well.
Exactly.
I mean, when we're born, the whole thing is extremely deep there. And I mean, we can't possibly cover it in an hour.
No, but it's important to show people how everything is connected.
It is.
So when you start looking at, for example, the ancient Greeks, the ancient Greek philosophers, how wise they were. How is it that they were so wise? Why have we lost that wisdom and that knowledge over the last, 2,500 years since those first philosophers came? How come they were so wise? They knew so much. They knew about the atoms. They knew about the cosmos. They knew everything. They knew about the ether, for God's sake. They were talking about the ether and how everything is connected through the ether. They knew these guys are so wise. And then we go and lose all this knowledge. I mean, we've gained some knowledge. We've gained a lot more. But it seems that all that fundamental knowledge was already there. I mean, Platonic solids was, that thing is still fundamental to our understanding of mainstream physics. So
yes.
So it's just spectacular.
In any way, is what we're experiencing now in terms of the deception and the control, is that parallel to ancient Babylon in your research? Because I know you've done a lot of research with those clay tablets.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is Babylon was quite controlled as well.
Yeah, I think there were various moments in human history, waves, when there was a concerted effort by the global elite at the time, who may still be the global elite today. These might be beings that lived for thousands of years, which, we have ample evidence for that. So these same beings that were controlling humanity 10,000 years ago, 100,000, 300,000 years ago, are still the same beings around today. The invisible, shadowy, behind-the-scenes figures that we don't know who they are. We don't know where they live. For very simple reasons, they don't want us to know. It's really that simple. So people say, how is that possible? Well, they don't want us to know. These.
Watch The Wizard of Oz again.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. There's the Wizard of Oz behind the magical curtain, and you follow the yellow brick road, right? I actually write the nice analogy of the Wizard of Oz in the Ubuntu book, just to show how this information is always hidden in plain sight, right? They put it in our movies, they put it in our stories. And this is, again, just keep in mind that just because we've got Hollywood and the movie industry today hiding the terrible truth in plain sight, and telling us what they're planning to do with humanity all the time, the global elite that control Hollywood. This has been the case throughout history. So before we had TV and movies, we had newspapers, and then the newspapers were spinning the stories the way they wanted. Before that, we had books. We had, before newspapers became a daily thing, we had books, and then Shakespeare, and we had authors that were chosen. Why was Shakespeare so popular and so big and so famous? First of all, anyone that studies Shakespeare will understand that it was not the guy that Shakespeare that wrote all those incredible stories, some little country bumpkin from Stratford-upon-Avon that had never left his village, that suddenly knew the affairs in Africa and Denmark and all over the world. He knew everything that was going on around the world. How the hell did he get all this knowledge and this wisdom? And you realize that there was, Francis Bacon seems to be the most likely character in history that was the author of all those stories that was then, and Shakespeare was used as the front to take it to the world. And you start realizing, oh my God, Shakespeare is actually deeply encoded with the same kind of spells and manipulation and subliminal coding and manipulation of our thinking that we find in Hollywood movies today. Shakespeare was in his day. It's unbelievable. It's spectacular. And I know people, some of my friends who have departed since, have gone into this in great detail, and they've studied the Shakespearean stories in great detail and found the connection to the tarot, for example, and how incredibly connected the storylines are to the archetypes in the tarot cards. And it's mind-blowing how this manipulation of humanity has gone on forever. But to come back to the various moments of the rise and fall of civilization, when these global elite had to intervene at certain times, the Tower of Babel was definitely one of them. There was probably the Great Flood even before that, that may have happened on purpose. Tower of Babel, and there may have been a few other incidents since the Tower of Babel where they needed to destroy humanity or wipe out humanity, for the simple reason that the consciousness levels among people and the awakening and the enlightenment levels among people around the world were rising so quickly that they were going to lose control. And once people realize that they're immortal beings, that your soul is an immortal, thing, this ethereal thing that occupies this physical meat sack, as my friend James Gilliland calls it. So this meat sack that you occupy for a little while. You have this experience on this earth, and you choose to come and have a journey here, and then you depart. But you realize that your soul is immortal, and that you have these experiences. So the moment people realize that this is just a temporary phase and a stage, they lose control of humanity. Because when people lose the fear of death, they lose control of people. And they had to, at various stages, like the Tower of Babel, you read in the Sumerian text, there are the translations that refer to that. They say, let us go down and destroy their language, for if they can do this, they can become like us. So who is us? And what is it that they can do to become like us? So to destroy their language, I believe, didn't mean that they destroyed, they made them all speak one language. That's not true. That's how we often hold the story, how to interpret that story. I truly believe that they literally went down and mixed up the frequencies and the codes of languages. So when people spoke, they started to realize that they could manifest. They could cast spells. They could do magic. The magi from the East, right? Magic. When you speak, you cast your spell, and you use a cone-shaped tool to enhance and enforce your spell like wizards and magicians do. And you start realizing, oh my God, this is all real historic stuff. This is not mythology. This is not some BS that people made up. This is real. And everything that they show us in Harry Potter is real, but they turn it into a fairy tale. So we think, oh, it's just some fairy tale. This is spectacular stuff.
They've actually shown linguistics have a direct impact on our DNA.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I can just say epigenetics is real. We reprogram our DNA all the time. Yeah. And the words we use, the frequency of the words, the actual way you construct words, that is important for DNA. Like Sanskrit's a living language that they would speak for sacred ritual to basically change their DNA and encode it with, whatever holy pursuits they're trying to do. So, we know this. And the thing is, when you get into the kind of frame of mind and consciousness that you're in, Michael, it all connects, and it's broad and it's rich and it's vast. And so talking to you right now is incredible for that. I know we only have a little bit of time left. Is there an area you want to go in? Because there's one area I'd like to go into.
Well, David, you steer this direction. What you would like for your listeners and your audience. We can come back. We can do this again. It feels because you're in Cape Town, it feels like you're a lot closer. So we can do this more regularly than I can do in the USA and Australia.
Yes. So I really love, one of the things to talk about on this show is solutions for the future. We all know we're at a point in time that feels kind of like a Tower of Babel, a great flood type of pivotal moment where there's an opportunity to do something great. And I believe in a lot of your work in your political movement, you are showing us that way, which is through the formation of community and going back to community. So for people that might be tuning in and listening, I'd just like you to speak about this solution, because I think it's beautiful in the way that you present it and the way that how the simplicity and the elegance of it. So I'd just like for you to take us out talking about Ubuntu.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good high, exciting point to end on, or subject to end on. And that's really the Ubuntu movement that came out of my research into the origins of humankind. And that Ubuntu movement in 2009 then turned into a political party, which became the Ubuntu Party. And we ran in 3 elections in 2012, 2014, and 2016. In 2014, and in essence, I ran for president because the Ubuntu Party, we had about 1 million supporters around South Africa. It's incredible. We just grew so quickly. And that's why when we got 5,500 votes in the end, I knew that something was wrong, because we had 1 million people signed up. With names and phone numbers, 1 million supporters that were going to vote for us. And what happened to those 1 million votes? So I knew that the election was rigged in 2014. And by that's when I realized that we couldn't do what we thought we would do. We started to share this Ubuntu philosophy, how we are going to create abundance and prosperity for people by teaching them about the banking system and so forth. But that was still a relatively lower consciousness kind of thinking about this way forward. Because in politics, you automatically enter into a confrontational kind of stance. You become an opposition party. So you oppose others. And I don't ever want to oppose others. I want to unite with others. I want to work together with others. I want to create and prosper with cooperation and collaboration. So it was in 2014 that I very quickly realized, after that rigged election, and I can talk a lot more about it, why we know it was rigged, because many things happened that very clearly showed us it was rigged. We should have had at least 4 seats in parliament. Well, thank God we didn't, because otherwise we would have ended up in parliament as a political party, arguing and bickering, and that never achieves anything. So that really made us exit the political arena and then initiate what then became known as the one small town can change the world philosophy, where we act as a non-political entity, where we start showing mayors and councils of small towns and the people of small towns how very simply they can turn their towns into places of prosperity and abundance by simply changing the way they think about their town, and by inviting investors, inviting inventors and scientists and teachers and healers, and offering opportunities for the investors to create community-owned businesses that are co-owned by the community and the investor together, and by simply contributing 3 hours a week towards the community projects, the businesses that we set up, you create an incredibly powerful, united labor force that can pretty much do anything we choose in a small town. And I would like to guide people towards the Ubuntu Planet website, ubuntuplanet.org or onesmalltown.org. Go watch the videos, the latest videos, the implementation plan of One Small Town, how simple it is. You don't need any money. The mayor doesn't need any money. The council doesn't need any money. All it needs is a conviction and a belief that this is what we're going to do. We're going to turn our town into a place of abundance and prosperity by inviting the people that want to invest into our united cooperative businesses and get all the benefits. Now, very quickly, the benefit of a town of, let's say, 10,000 people, because the numbers are easy with 10,000, a small town of 10,000 people, if everybody contributes 3 hours a week, and everybody has got 3 hours a week towards the community projects that are structured, very well planned. We use technology and blockchain. So it's not a free fall. We're not a bunch of hippies going to grow food on a piece of land. It's very different. We're using existing towns, existing infrastructure, existing factories, buildings, farms, sewage, electricity supply. We're using the tools of enslavement as tools of liberation for the benefit of the community. So we're turning it around. We're not fighting it. We're actually using it to benefit ourselves, to turn our town into a place that through the businesses we set up as cooperative businesses make millions and possibly billions of rands and possibly billions of dollars. Now, the numbers are very simple. And again, this is all in the videos on the website. Any large corporation of 5,000 employees or more, on average, generates $1 billion or more per annum. Okay, listen to these numbers. 5,000 people in a corporation, 5,000 employees corporation, generates $1 billion or more. We can compare that to a town of about 10,000 people that contribute their 3 hours a week, because those 10,000 people give us an opportunity of 30,000 hours of labor, free labor every week, 30,000 hours of free labor a week. We've basically, in a nutshell, in a blink of an eye, turned our town into a fierce competitor with any large multinational corporation. We can grow food, we can make cornflakes, we can build supercomputers, TVs, we can run internet highways, we can do anything. We can build hospitals and cure disease. We can do anything we choose to do because we have this powerful labor force and the very, very exciting investment opportunity for investors who are very keen to invest because they get all these benefits from this free labor force. It is a spectacular model. We've done the numbers on it many times, and it always comes up that this contributionism model, not capitalism, contributionism model that we call One Small Town, it runs so much more successfully and makes so much more money for its investors and its community than any other potential capitalist model does. It is quite spectacular. So it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. I know that One Small Town is coming, and whatever country it's going to happen, whether it's the USA, Canada, Australia, South Africa, Brazil, Germany, I'm talking to mayors all over the world, and the frequency at which I'm talking to mayors is increasing now, especially after this lockdown. People are realizing that we've got to find some other way to survive, to cooperate, to collaborate, to create abundance for ourselves. And the small towns are the places to be for this approach. So it's just a matter of time. We also have the technology. We have the alternative electricity generators. We have alternative telecommunications. We have the healing, curing of all disease. All this exists, and I'm in touch and in contact with the inventors and the scientists that have developed all this technology. All this will be available in whatever is the first small town that takes this direction. And the mayor, a bold, brave mayor somewhere that decides, wow, I love this, I'm going to do this. But the key thing here is that that mayor then needs to go through the very strict steps of implementation. The mayor becomes the voice and the face of this One Small Town initiative. The mayor is the driver of it. week after week, going out there with very inspirational videos, updates, information about what we've done, what we've achieved, what we're planning to do, slickly produced, well produced, beautiful little, informational 10, 15, 20 minutes every week, plus showing documentaries about what we're doing. That becomes so inspiring and motivating for people in other countries and other towns that it's not going to take long for other mayors to want to follow the same suit. So in essence, that's what's come out of studying ancient civilizations. Isn't that incredible? How the two are connected, inextricably connected. And the way that it happened is very simply, when I discovered in 2005 that money did not evolve out of thousands of years of bartering and trading, that money was a complete and finished philosophy and a model that was introduced to humanity at a very specific point in time, was introduced to humanity as a complete and utter tool of enslavement. So what we get taught at school and at business school and at economics school is completely wrong. It's a lie and it's a deception. It's a well-calculated deception propaganda to make us believe that money is something that has come with humanity for thousands of years. We can't do without money. We have to have money, otherwise society will collapse. That is absolutely false. And there was a very specific moment that money suddenly appears as a complete model, and people are using money in ancient Sumerian times. And the first kings that appeared on earth became the first bankers. Their temples became the first banks. And out of those first temples operating as banks, they started to issue the first forms of money in the form of little clay tablets as promissory notes, exactly the same way the financial systems work today. It is quite spectacular. Nothing has changed in 6,000 years.
You hit the nail on the head there, Michael. One thing I'm talking about on my show a lot too is this transitional ethics. As people begin to wake up to the scam that we're living in, it can be overwhelming. So it's sort of, we know where we're going, where we want to go. The kind of models you talk about for living is much more natural. It's in harmony with nature. It's in harmony with our own essence. But we have a little bit of a gap to cover between where people start and where that is. And so, yeah, it's keeping that and making those marginal gains every day in that direction. But it's doable. And, I've met people that happily live outside the system and they are full. I mean, that's people come with so many problems and they seem so complicated. But when you decondition from the matrix that's embedded in us through these thousands of years, you begin to realize, holy crap, I'm a being of unlimited potential. There's so much life coming into me in the absence of this conditioning.
Yeah. And just to come back to one small town, and then maybe we should finish this on a high note, is that it's so simple. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to leave something behind to start this, jump off a cliff into uncertain waters. No, you carry on your life as you do. You can keep your job. It can be a job at the bank or at the railways or anywhere, at ShopRite. No matter what job you have, you carry on your job slowly but surely. Just find hours a week to contribute towards the whatever it is that you get allocated to do that week, and find your 3 hours a week, and that town will just prosper and blossom and create abundance and prosperity so quickly that people will then be able to leave their jobs. As you start distributing money from the profits every month, people start earning more money every month from the collective income of all the businesses that we co-own, that they'll be making as much or more money from the distribution of the profits every month of the large businesses that we've started. So at the point, there come a point very quickly that people say, well, why do I have a job at the bank, or why do I work over there 2 hours away from here? All I need to do is just live in my town, contribute my 3 hours a week, and we have a town that has got everything that it needs. And we are constantly growing and expanding with technology, healthcare, education, community building, taking care of our own community, taking care of the children, the orphans, the elderly. Everyone has got everything they need, far more so than we have currently, where most of the time there's no money, no services, no one can do it, and it's just left, and people live in misery most of the time.
Yes. As Gurdjieff said, a man will give up anything except for his suffering. And so we have to come to that point to let go of our misery, to embrace true abundance. Michael, thank you so much. This has been an incredible pleasure. I'm not even going to go over all the links to stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything you said. I'm going to put them all in links in the description for the video, in the description for the podcast, so people can go there. But I will ask, just for the listeners who might not have that ability, they can go to your website, right? Is that a good place to start down this rabbit hole?
Yeah, the best place. Just go to, the easiest one to remember is onesmalltown.org.
Onesmalltown.org.
It'll take you to our website, the Ubuntu Planet website. Then you can read everything, watch all the videos. There's a new FAQ page, frequently asked questions page, where I deal with thousands of questions over the years about what happens this and what about that and what about that. So I keep adding new questions to that, normally once a week or so. And it's just a beautiful journey of discovery as people lose the fear about where we are, the worry, the constant worry about how we're going to survive, how we're going to make it through the next year. Am I still going to have a job at the end of this year, and so forth? So it's a huge relief for people to discover this, to know that there is a way out, and it's a way that's manageable, it's doable, it's financially viable. It's, as we've seen from many accountants and business planners that have done the numbers for us. And it's just a beautiful, simplistic way to get us out of this economic slavery system without ever having to fight, to resist, or resort to violence in any way whatsoever. That's the best part of it.
That's not a frequency of victory, is falling into the same. That's falling into the same level as the problem, right? As Einstein said, we can't solve a problem by falling into the same level of resonance. Yeah. We have to actually rise above
exactly.
that. And this is just standing true and being like, no, this is how we do it. And that the other thing melts away. It dissolves in the process.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So in a sense, what we're really doing very simply is we're creating, by using the tools of enslavement as tools of liberation, and that's money, legal systems, political systems, court systems, everything. We just use it, and we know how to turn that around so it actually serves us to turn these communities of abundance. And by creating these communities of abundance, we're in essence creating a whole new reality, a whole new paradigm, and a whole new system that makes the current system obsolete. And people just automatically gravitate towards a new system because this one is just, sorry, you're going paradise or hell. What's it going to be? Paradise or hell?
Yeah. Michael, thank you so much. We will have to do this again sometime, as there's so many other areas we can go into of your broad knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Great talking to you. I look forward to our next chat.